Hello, my name is Cristancho and welcome to my video on how to maintain my proximity search implementation. So, an outline of the video. First, I'm going to discuss the design overview. I wanted to discuss the design of proximity search. After that, I'm going to discuss the front-end perimeter. A perimeter is simply a set of files that I have modified in the front end. So the back-end perimeter is a set of files I have modified in the back end. Then I'm going to discuss the proximity search flow, which is how do we connect all the files I discussed in the front end to all the files I discussed in the back end. How do they flow together orderly? After I show the proximity search flow, I'm going to discuss some productivity tips that I found useful while implementing proximity search. It's optional, you could skip that, but I feel like it helps. So a design overview. If you're collecting input, if you're talking to the backend, if you're displaying results, and if you're setting the map, most likely than not, you're going to work in the front end. If you receive input, if you perform the proximity search, and you manage connections to Google APIs, most likely you're working in the backend. So those are the two purposes of each area. So here's the front-end perimeter. These are all the files that I have modified in the front end to implement proximity search. So if I were you, I would pause the video now and I would write down all these files. This is where you're going to be working. So I'm going to quickly discuss what each file means, but this is by no means a complete definition. So the views.landing is just all the information to display proximity. It's just to display the landing page. Results is to display the results in the results page. Landing.js is JavaScript functions that are used to help the landing page. Results.js is to JavaScript to connect to the results.page. Properties.js are JavaScript functions to handle properties, and they also connect to the backend. Maps.js is handling the map in the results page. Themes.js it holds a bunch of directives. I added it in a nutshell. If autofocus doesn't make sense to you, don't go to themes.js. It's just for me to add a directive for autofocus in the input query. And landing is I modified in there to style the autocomplete. So yeah. Backend perimeter. This is a little lighter. So here are all the files that I modified in the backend, like the front end. If I were you, take a picture or pause the video. So these are all the files I modified. So I'm going to discuss them really quick. urls.py it just holds all the URLs for BreazeHome. So in here, there's a URL to perform an address search. Usually, you won't need to modify anything there. So real estate view.py, this holds the view to perform the search engine. So this is where you begin the search, and there's a property view set there that has the search engine ready to go. So search.py is my module that I've created that holds the search engine. Google.py holds functions to connect to Google and has an API manager for Google for Google Maps. And finally, the location.py is my module that holds a bunch of functions for coordinates. So yeah, that's the backend perimeter. And here's the proximity search flow. This is how all the files connect to each other in order. So in the front end, you will first start with the landing.html, then you move on to landing.js, and then you go on to properties.js, which has a function that connects to the backend, which tells the backend, can you please search for these properties? Once we're in the backend, we go to urls.py, which connects to view.py in the property view set that's in there, and then that connects to the search engine, which is search.py. The search engine has to connect to Google to translate the query to coordinates, and then after that, it uses those coordinates to filter out properties based on location using the location.py coordinate functions. And then it returns all those properties that are near the query to the front end. It displays them in the results.html. Results.js has to call the map to adjust it, and then the map holds all the functions in there. So that's the whole entire flow. So now I am going to show the code base in action using this search flow. Alright, so let me type in the password. Alright, so this is landing.html, and this is the beginning of proximity search. So this is landing.html, and As you can see here, every single implementation I have has a start and an end in comments. And if I were you, in order to find my code, I would search for acris, like that. And then the first acris will be the start, and then there will be the end right here. So all my implementations have that. So this function right here in landing.html basically defines the input, the autocomplete. It defines where the user performs an input. Alright, so that's that. And then we move on to properties.js. No, we move on to landings.js, which is a controller. So let's go to landings.js. So here's right here, the first thing you do with acris would be the autocomplete, and then the next one would be the address search. And this right here connects to properties.js and then connects to the backend. So there you go. So let's go to properties.js, which would be a service. Right here, search address is the function to connect to the backend. That's pretty much all there is to it. It gets the query that we had in the view and then connects to the backend. So now we move from properties.js to the view in the backend. So here we go. Gotta search for I can't believe I can't even type my email right. So here's the imports that we need, and if you search acris again, this get query set function is how the front end connects to the back end. Very important. In a nutshell, this is the interface from the front end to the search engine. So as you can tell, it gets the query set, and then right here it calls the search engine. So let me show you the search engine, which is search.py. There's a whole bunch of documentation comments discussing how I designed it. And this whole entire thing is the search engine, and it would start here. Search engine.start, and right here it performs the proximity search, which is search proximity. So then we go to search proximity right here, and this does the whole entire proximity algorithm to return properties near a query. So here's a line that I want to show people if you even got this far. This line right here is the performance hit, and if anyone wants to increase the performance of proximity search, I would start here, because it is here that I have to open up the query set. If you don't know what a query set is, that is essential to increasing the performance of proximity search. So I'm not going to get into that too much. So here's the google.py, which holds the Google managers. I'm not really going to get into it. In a nutshell, I created a class that holds the API key, and then there's a function that says, translate my query into coordinates, which is this one. So here's location.py, which is all the functions I need to act on coordinates, like changing latitude and longitude degrees to miles, determining whether one point is in proximity to another, calculating the distance between 2 points, and then converting a point field to coordinates, because in the database everything's stored as a point field, which is basically longitude and latitude, but the SI unit of coordinates is latitude and longitude. I wish I could get into it more, but we have to move on. So after location.py, we go back to the views. This is results.html. So we got the properties after the proximity search, and now we go to results.html. And this HTML simply, all it does is display the properties, which is a little lower down. But if you search for acris, this is the refinement search, which is the search bar within the results page. It's right there. Oh, a quick note. If you even got this far, there's a little, yeah, right there. Right now in production, type equals button is not there, so every time you perform a refinement search, this weird drop down goes down. If you want to just remove that functionality, make sure type equals button. Put it in your code if you want to remove that. Yeah, type equals button, remember that. So let's go to the controller. for results.html. Here's results.js. Search for my name, Chris, and this is a function I've implemented to set up the results map. So yes, this is the function I did to set up the results map. And after that, right here, this is the function right here, which is address search. This performs a refinement search. So before, I don't know why I paused. I think I was reading code and something didn't look right, but this is what I was talking about before. This setups a results map, which initializes it, and the next one performs an address search when you use the refinement search, and that's all you need to know. Finally, let's go to services, map, get position. This converts the point field into latitude and longitude. I have documentation there to say that. And here's a function to move the map using coordinates. So yep, that's pretty much a whole entire flow of proximity search. Alright, so let's go back here real quick. Some productivity tips. Like I was discussing previously, if you want to find my code, just search for Chris. Everything is encapsulated within comments, and that's my code, and that's where you want to work for. So I would use this proximity search flow right here to find out where you want to implement something, and then search for Chris to find out what I've implemented. So some scripts that I've added, some other productivity tips. I have a script that fires up the front end, and I have a script that fires up the back end, so I don't have to run these complex commands in the onboarding. So I'll show you that, and I will show you my bash RC file, which shows how fast I navigated. If you look closely, they look like commands, but they weren't. But they were really navigation aliases. Like if I wanted to go to views, I typed in views. If I wanted to go to controls, I typed in controls. So I'll show you how to do that. Remember, these productivity tips are optional, so if you want to leave, you could leave now if you like. So let me show you. Here's the backend script right here. Pause it and view it if you want to have an ability to fire up the backend in one command. Here's the front end. Pause it if you want to view an ability to fire up the front end. And let me show you how it works. Here's the backend, which we're running. And here's the front end, which we are indeed running with just one command. We don't have to enter a whole bunch of stuff. Alright, so it takes a little bit. There we go, and it fires up BreazeHome. And this command has saved me so much time, because to fire up the back end takes a lot of commands, and to fire up the front end takes a lot of commands. So it's really good to have one command to fire up each section. So there it is. And let's quit the back end, let's quit the front end. And now let me show you my bash RC file. I guess someone had bash there, .bash. So here's my bash RC file, which is a whole bunch of aliases to change directory. The project home, I put Breeze 5, but you could put anything else you like. If I were you, pause this and view it for later to understand it. But in a nutshell, these are all the aliases I had to change directory within the files. It makes it really fast, and as you can see in the demo, I could switch between a whole bunch of files really quickly. If you want that, pause this video and review this script. I'm not going to really go through it. It helps me out with a lot of time going through different files. Since I'm a Vim user, I kind of need that. I do the old school way. Yeah, those are the productivity tips. Any questions, feel free. My name is Cristancho, and if you have any questions, go to acris005 at FIU.edu. Yeah, just if I were to put everything in one summary, it is to save the front-end perimeter, see all the files that I have, save the back-end perimeter, which is all the files I worked on in the back-end, and then see the flow. How do they flow together? And hopefully using that, you could isolate where you want to implement your feature. Because it was hard for me, actually the majority of the time, in my opinion, of adding my feature was finding the right place where to add it. And that took at least 2/3 of my time. The coding was easy. I just needed to find out where to put the code. So I checked all the videos. Not many people have this, but I wanted to have this, so I wanted to list all the files that I worked on so you guys could easily extend proximity search. Remember, Frontend Perimeter has all the files I've worked on in the front end. Backend Perimeter has all the files I worked on in the back end. And then the proximity search flow connects all those files into a use case from entering a user coordinate